Man, what an awesome year of gaming this has been. I mean, I can't remember any other year being this stacked with game releases. Seriously, my gaming backlog is as bloated as my body post a Rajma Chawal binge. I'm not gonna lie, this was a tough list to make, but after a lot of soul searching and a lot of coffee, here's my list of the best games that came out on the PlayStation in 2023. Talk about getting it right thrice in a row. After the brilliant showing of Spider Man in 2018 and the follow up Miles Morales, Spider Man 2 has been a noteworthy sequel despite the high standards of the previous games. It takes the multiple Spider Man concept of No Way Home and delivers it in a game that quite possibly does it better. Just when you thought the previous games were perfect, developer Insomniac Games add new traversal mechanics like gliding and water skimming, basically mechanics that help you maintain momentum. The best part is, the haptic controls feel fantastic. Combat abilities are absolute god tier, and unlocking new ones gives a decent sense of progression. Even the side missions this time are heartwarming, with a focus on New York City, rather than Spider Man just beating up more bad guys. I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but the villains in this game, Kraven and Venom, what a brilliant arc for each of these guys. Scorpion. So, yeah, if you have a PlayStation 5, you just can't miss out on this epic adventure. Baldur's Gate 3 is an anomaly. A hardcore Dungeons and Dragons RPG with turn based combat that got this successful. It makes the nerd in me so proud. The amount of content and interactions in this game allow you to do just about anything you want, and the world will adapt to you. Your choices really do matter, and you have the ability to dictate the nature of your character and who you side with. Not just that, if someone from your party doesn't agree with you, they have their own free will to leave, or worse, go against you. Like, what? You can be a real saint or a sadistic maniac, and the game world reacts accordingly. This really goes a long way in making you feel like you're actually role playing in this interactive world. The classes and the tools you have at your disposal are quite diverse and add a whole new dimension of player choice. The best part is, nothing in Baldur's Gate 3 feels like bloatware. Every quest and decision matters. This is what every RPG should strive to be. Alan Wake 2 is positively bonkers, but in a totally awesome way. In this narrative-driven game, you play as Alan Wake and FBI agent Saga Anderson. Even though the gameplay between the two characters differs, the mix between deduction and combat sequences and how the two narratives intertwine will keep you going. And the mind place? It's so well executed. The deduction that I spoke of earlier is mostly done in this imaginary space within Anderson's mind. Now, what else does this game have going for it? Fantastic visuals and set pieces. Check. Immersive sound design.
Appearance we normally solve. Our crime.
Check. Fantastic acting. Check. Attention to detail. Check. Humor. Check. Engaging combat. Check. One of the best this year. Yes. Hogwarts Legacy is an obvious choice for all Potterheads, or fans of the Harry Potter series, be it books or movies. This open-world action-adventure RPG captured the magic of the Harry Potter universe for me. You get to explore Hogwarts Castle and iconic places from the lore, including Hogsmeade and the Highlands. Attend classes, fly on broomsticks, explore the world, capture beasts, collect gear, and so much more as a fully customizable student at Hogwarts. This game offers several RPG mechanics that give you plenty of player choice, like picking your house and rewarding progression systems. The combat is fun and engaging. Between chain casting a variety of spells, dodging, and finding openings to attack, the game establishes a fun back and forth that you don't want to miss out on. Resident Evil 4, one of the best in the survival horror genre, has now been remade with a visual and gameplay overhaul. Wait, do I really need to say more? Okay, fine. The ability to crouch for stealth, parry attacks when an enemy gets close, a more intuitive crafting system, and shooting while moving are amazing additions. The visual overhauls make the horrifying atmosphere and set pieces of the game even more unsettling. These gameplay tweaks now allow for a more aggressive playstyle. Duck under ranged projectiles, outspace and dodge melee hits while shooting your enemy's brains out. Craft items on the fly, and if someone gets too close, just parry with that knife of yours, homie. But remember, your knife can break. The RE4 remake is an excellent experience for people who played the game previously and first-timers alike. While developer CD Projekt began their redemption arc on Cyberpunk soon after its disastrous launch, Phantom Liberty is when the game really popped off thanks to the Cyberpunk 2.0 update. This update, which was free for everyone by the way, made massive improvements to the base game with features like better police AI and AI in general, new combat updates, perks, and improved vehicular combat. All these features transitioned to the Phantom Liberty expansion that packed in more content than most games with a brand new storyline for V to experience, a gorgeous new area to explore, new weapons, even more perks, and lots more. The best time to jump back into Cyberpunk 2077 is now. Armored Core 6 is my favorite game this year. I've 100%ed it, and I'll tell you why. It's fast-paced and lets you approach combat in so many ways thanks to the in-depth customization. You have a staggering amount of choices between weapons and AC parts, which have unique animations with so much attention to detail. I could talk about the variety, animations, and what specific parts do all day, but that would need a textbook of its own. I'll just let this gameplay footage speak for itself. Amazing, right? The levels and the world building lend so much authenticity to Rubicon as a planet, and the characters are all memorable. This game can even get quite anime sometimes. Just hang out with Rusty and you'll see what I'm talking about. The soundtracks are no slouch either. Armored Core 6 also has 3 different endings, so you really get your paisa vasuli here. As a series, Final Fantasy has been moving away from turn-based combat for a while now, and as a result, Final Fantasy XVI evolves into its final form as an all-out action RPG. With real-time hack-and-slash combat, the game takes a bit of a mature turn with its story and plot elements inspired by HBO's Game of Thrones. Final Fantasy XVI looks fantastic, and the combat is engaging while being accessible and forgiving. Let's just say, this is not going in the Souls-like direction in any way. That said, you have a whole bunch of cool looking moves and combos that would make Rajnikant proud, so it's definitely a visual spectacle. I made a whole video about it, so go check that out if you're curious for more. Even if you played EA's sci-fi survival horror franchise decades ago, the Dead Space remake is definitely worth your time. While the story does largely stay the same, revolving around engineer Isaac Clarke and his misfortune aboard the alien-infested Ishimura, everything else in this game has been made from the ground up and it feels like an all-new experience. The biggest change is the addition of an AI director that manages everything from jump scares to resource availability to enemy spawns, keeping you on your toes at all times. Isaac now also has dialogue and isn't a silent protagonist anymore. What I really liked is that even for someone who's mastered the 2008 version of Dead Space, this felt like an all-new game. Definitely not for the faint of heart though. There's so much to do in Diablo 4. You can make a beeline for the story and then proceed to tackle the endgame content, or take your time tackling side quests and become a true force to reckon with. Diablo 4 ups the series in just about every way. The highly customizable skill tree lets you play in remarkably different styles within each class. For example, you could spec into a fire-wielding Harbinger of Death or a super fast rogue who stabs dudes harder than Rambo. The endgame content is just fantastic, where you face your toughest adversaries with some of the best gear this game has to offer. And it gets better, with every season offering new seasonal themed content and bosses. If you like action RPGs, this one definitely deserves a spot in your collection. Apart from some major performance issues that were present at launch but have been ironed out now, Jedi Survivor is a must-play if you're a fan of Star Wars or action-adventure games or Souls-light games. Jedi Survivor expands upon everything I loved about its predecessor, upping the ante in every way, be it combat options, a brand new arsenal including dual lightsabers, new force powers, or the sheer amount of locations that would bring a smile to anyone who grew up watching Star Wars. If EA gets it right with part 3 of the series, we could have one of the best Star Wars trilogies in a long time. Lies of P is as Souls-likes get. The art style and level design of Krat are stellar. Just going through Krat really gives you an idea of what the city was like before the puppets went crazy. You can tell what the purpose of the puppets' creation was just by looking at their designs. Combat is the most important and fun aspect, and it slaps harder than Singam. Take Bloodborne combat, add Sekiro's deflected that and the prosthetic arm, and voila, you have something special, aka Lies of P. It's a hard game though, which is why mastering its combat and understanding the weapon customization among many other things was so satisfying. The bosses are just fantastic, and the lore and designs behind some of them is some expertly executed stuff right there. And the soundtracks and boss themes are straight up some of the best I've heard. After 2 developer changes and multiple delays over the past few years, it's really surprising how Dead Island 2 turned out to be this good. It doesn't reinvent the zombie formula by any means, but it's a solid action game with insanely satisfying melee combat, a competent graphics system, and some of the best gore effects I've seen since Soldier of Fortune. You are a survivor trapped in LA, in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, and of course, just happen to be the chosen one who never turns. Using your gift and an insane arsenal of weapons from melee options like swords, bats, hammers, machetes, sledgehammers, to firearms like pistols, shotguns, assault rifles, rocket launchers, and lots more, you proceed to escape this hellhole with a ragtag group of survivors. This game is solid from start to finish. Now that PSVR 2 is officially available in India, I got to try out Horizon Call of the Mountain. A little late in the day, but wow, what an experience. This one has you playing as Reyes, an expert archer and mountain climber who also happens to be a disgraced soldier trying to redeem himself. Being a VR game, Call of the Mountain moves away from the series' open world formula and moves at a linear pace, focused more on offering a great interactive experience. Climbing is a huge part of the game, and it's done better than I've seen in most instances, especially segments involving the pickaxe. The combat is straightforward and very well handled. I didn't feel limited in this world in my ability to traverse or handle enemies, which was quite exhilarating. Call of the Mountain is a fantastic showcase for the PSVR 2 and VR gaming in general. In case you're planning on picking up the PSVR 2 unit, there's a bundle out with Horizon Call of the Mountain, so do check that out. Hey, you don't need me telling you how good Street Fighter 6 is, but if you've been sitting on the fence about it, let me just say that Street Fighter 6 is a no-brainer for anyone who's a fan of fighting games in general. I love the World Tour mode, which is new to the series. It's a neat addition that lets you explore and perform quests alongside the main story as a character you create. Speaking of which, the character creation is quite in-depth, with DLCs constantly coming in with new options, like the Ninja Turtles for example. That said, the roster, right off the bat, is packed with new and returning characters that offer options for all sorts of playstyles. It's definitely the most accessible Street Fighter game till date, which is why it's so easy to recommend. We had Dave, who's a local Street Fighter pro, talk about the new mechanics among other things, so do check that video out if you haven't already. While Dark Souls with guns is definitely the elevator pitch for Remnant 2, I'll give you some more gyan if you aren't convinced. This game isn't open world per se, but instead is broken up into different hubs, and each of these hubs are procedurally generated, which means every run results in a different experience. These hubs or biomes are unique in design and are littered with gear that you're unlikely to discover in your first, a second, or even a third run. Remnant 2 can be played solo, but it really shines with 2 players by your side. Oh, and you can be an animal expert accompanied by a faithful dog companion. Sick'em boy. It's always impressive when an indie game stands with the best that gaming has to offer, let alone a game that was announced only a few years ago on Kickstarter. Quote, retro aesthetics, modern game design, unquote, as the developer Sabotage puts it, and that philosophy shines through with Sea of Stars. Official description aside, I would say that this is a love letter to Chrono Trigger, and a sort of an imagining of what that series would look like in modern times. The combat is turn-based, but it keeps you engaged with timed inputs to enhance hits and blocks, just like Chrono Trigger. There are co-op combos as well that make combat a lot more interesting. If you like old school JRPGs, Sea of Stars is a must-play for you. Those were some of the best games I've played this year. If your favorite game isn't on this list, don't get angry, let's talk about it in the comments. As always, like, subscribe and ring the notification bell, and I'll see you people again soon. Bye!
PlayStation